Hello. I'm back. I haven't been in YouTube in so long, so I'm sorry for the hiatus. I noticed I had a bunch of comments. I have to catch up on those, and I'm sorry for seemingly abandoning this community. But wow, I was just reading through some of the comments, and I'm so blown away. And it's all the more reason for me to get back on here. So, where shall I start? The last many videos that I've been making were just finishing the project of Women Who Run with the Wolves, which was super powerful. I always like when I take a little break from reading that book, I really start to miss it. It's like it's such a vibe when you're reading it. It just puts you in this like it just makes your whole life seem a little bit more magical and a little bit more dreamy. I have been reading some other really cool books, which I'll talk about more later, but I guess I just wanted to give the bigger picture update because there's been a lot of unknowns the last couple years, to be honest, maybe even like 5 years. I don't know. But the update of the last couple years is that, yeah, my life got turned upside down from COVID. Story time. So I started off the pandemic teaching at a school. I guess I'll just give all the details for those of you who don't know me at all. So I'm sorry if this is redundant for those of you who do, but I worked after graduating from my master's in teaching. I worked at a school, a really cool school. It's a K through 12 kind of alternative school. I think of it sort of like a homeschool co-op. And I was so stoked when I found this school. And for many years, it felt like I had my dream job, to be honest. Like I got to hang out with really cool kids, and it was all ages. So I got to see, 5-year-olds playing, on the field during recess with 18-year-olds. So it was just such a magical place. It still is such a magical place. And I never thought I would leave, to be honest. And I had been having some like feelings of burnout over the last, before COVID for a few years. But I was just trying to make it work and having better boundaries and trying to work a little bit less and doing more things that I was passionate about. And I started some side projects like my coaching business. Obviously, I have like an herbal apothecary business and a bunch of projects. And it's funny to think about that helping with burnout, but somehow just having something on the side that wasn't school was like really inspiring for me. So I did that for a while. But when the pandemic hit, we went all online, and that sort of just made the overwhelm just so much worse because it was just so hard to deal with what was going on in the world and being so disconnected feeling, and the kids were really struggling. And I felt like we went from being more focused on the whole child to having to really more focus on academics. And anyway, that's no one's fault at all. It's just the pandemic really messed everyone up and made teaching really hard and made school really hard for kids. So it was just really heartbreaking to be in that environment. But I finished out the year because obviously the pandemic started in March. We went online for what we thought was just going to be a few weeks. That ended up going the whole rest of the year. And then the following year was an entire year online. So I stuck it through. But I would say that was some of the hardest times. That was really the hardest time ever, me working there. And in general, like a really hard time in my life. Simultaneously, I had been living for 10 years at a community house that I started called the Beehive. And this place was my home. I was there for 10 years, so it just feels like I had such deep roots there. And many people had come through and lived there, and we had so many magical experiences there. We had a garden, and we had chickens and aerial silks, and we would have like gatherings there and art parties. And man, just thinking about it now, I'm still sort of like, my heart, I can feel it in my heart a little. I still have some grief around losing that place. But we were having a good run and during the pandemic, but long story short, it all kind of fell apart in, I think, December or maybe November of 2020. So I feel like I had gone online at school and I was still at the Beehive until the winter. And the winter, I don't know if y'all remember, but the winter of 2020 was really rough overall, just with COVID. But not only that, again, losing my housing. So we ended up going and living with family, just me and my partner. And I was super grateful to have had that opportunity. But that was really far away. So I felt like extremely isolated, and was still teaching online. And so that went on for a while. And then when that really felt like it needed to come to an end, we found another temporary spot. And then we found another temporary spot. So I'm kind of like skipping over some of the details, but basically I've been very housing insecure for the last couple years. Also really wanting to leave my job, but not really knowing how to do that financially, feeling like a lot of pressure on myself to figure it out and to know what the next steps were. And getting to a point where by the spring of 2021, which was now a year and a half into the pandemic, working at a school, I decided I couldn't do it anymore, and I was reaching a mental health point of total burnout. So that's when I decided to go on a sabbatical, and that just basically means I'm not sure if I'm leaving. It means at the time I really felt like I was just going to take a year off and try and just recuperate and heal, and I had no idea what that meant about money. I really jumped off the cliff. Like, I didn't have any savings or anything, so I just sort of like was trusting that something would work out for a year and that we would figure it out. And with all the housing shifts, that ended up being a lot more challenging than I thought it would be, because it's really hard to get housing right now, and it was at least last year, and it was really expensive, and I didn't have any income, so it was really hard to like prove to a landlord that I could pay rent. So that whole phase was really challenging, and I felt like I was a very like wounded person at the time. And so now, fast forward, I got a few coaching clients and tutoring clients that sort of kept me afloat for a little while, but just barely, and I was going into extreme scarcity mode. But I kept feeling like there was things I could do. Like, I could go back to teaching, I could go back to my school job, I could do more tutoring, I could advertise my services more, but I just kept feeling like such a strong, intuitive no to so many things, and I don't know where that was coming from, but I just felt like I was hitting a wall. And this really amazing opportunity came up to help a group of friends of mine at their ketamine clinic. So I started working there as a facilitator, which felt super aligned and really resonated with some of the work I had been doing on the side with coaching and different underground work with psychedelic healing and things like that. So that was really a helpful turn of events. And right around the same time, we ended up finding a really cool place to live outside of the city. It's in a little town outside of Seattle that's a 40-minute to an hour drive. So it's pretty far from the city, but it feels so close to nature, and I get to walk to a river and a beautiful park, and I can go there every day, and I just feel so happy that we found this place. And that is a whole story in itself of just really holding my standards high and dreaming up the exact vision of where I wanted to live, and having so many like kind of tests and false alarms come through, and things looking so bleak, and then just like holding on to faith, and then this came through, and it's just been like so dreamy to live here, and I've just felt so safe. Like, it's been the first time since moving out of the Beehive where I feel like I can finally just relax and feel like I belong here, like I'm at home. And it's just me and Tanner, so I'm not living in community anymore, which I really resisted for a while, but it's actually feeling really good and safe and clean for my energy to be more on my own. We still have our own rooms, which we already did at the Beehive too, but having my own room and not having roommates and just living with Tanner and the dogs is just so peaceful. So I'm feeling really grateful. That was like a huge update to my life, or upgrade to my life, I guess, was finding this place, which I'm in right now, out kind of in the country. I'm like right next to a bunch of farms. There's raw milk at the grocery store. Like, it's really magical. So I'm really, really stoked that we found this place. And that was in the spring. And then around that time, I was really thinking about like, okay, this is when I need to start kind of preparing to go back to working at the school, or maybe getting a different teaching job. I didn't really know like any other plan B. Like, I'm a teacher, like I'm trained as a teacher. This is what I have to do. And teachers are really needed. There's lots of teaching jobs and sub jobs. but I just kept getting like, it's almost like I have an allergy to academics or just teaching in general. I still love to be around kids, and that was never really an issue. Like, especially teenagers. I love teenagers. It's weird. I just love hanging out with them, and they're just so, cool and interesting and going through such amazing transformation in their life and just rites of passage. And I love being around that phase of life. But I just kept feeling this, like, I can't really put my finger on it even now, but it has something to do with just not really feeling like my life's work is to make sure kids do math, for example. Even though I love math, I love science, like, I can nerd out, believe me. And I still have a few tutoring clients, actually, just because I want to keep a thread. Like, I want to hold on to a little bit of that kind of mathy brain stuff. But just the idea of, during this pandemic, like, feeling like part of my job was to make sure that kids were learning these specific skills and factual information that in some ways at the time, at least to me, and I'm not saying this is universally true, but to me it really felt like not important, I guess. Like, I felt like majority of the work that I wanted to be doing with these kids was social, emotional, almost like therapy, emotional support. And so that's kind of what I was doing. And basically all the signs for many years have been pointing me towards going deeper with what I would be doing as coaching and becoming an actual therapist. I have a lot of resistance to going back to school. I have a lot of resistance to student debt, and I've been through a huge journey with that, which maybe I'll explain another time. But long story short, I decided to go for it. I had actually already been thinking about it, and when I took my sabbatical, I actually applied to a program. Let me back up a little bit. I was kind of thinking about the therapy thing, and I had been looking at programs for probably 4 or 5 years. So that wasn't just like a new thing. It was something I had been thinking about for a while. But they all seemed pretty expensive. Most of them were long, and I just felt like it was a really big commitment. So one of the programs I was looking at was local, and it's the same school I went to grad school with the first time. So I was interested in this program, and they had made an announcement the summer of 2021 that they were restructuring the program, and the program was now cheaper and shorter. So that was like a big sign from the universe to me to consider it. And I had applied even that summer, but they had already, like, the applications were due months ago. So they put me on the wait list. And then anyway, I applied again in the spring. By the way, I can't tell if I'm going into too many details here, but basically I applied in the spring to this therapy program that I was interested in. And anyway, I interviewed and I got in. And so now over the summer, I was just sort of like kind of having cold feet and feeling like, oh my God, it's more than I expected it to cost, and it's going to be a lot of debt. But I didn't really have a plan B, and the work at the ketamine clinic has been really powerful. If anything, working there has like even more aligned me with this path, because there was a while where when I would be coaching, I would feel sort of drained or like I don't know if this is for me, like maybe I should do something in tech or something. Like I had all these different ideas of what I could do. I love herbalism. I love arts and crafts. I had an Etsy store for a while. I was like, oh, I can really like put more energy into that. Or maybe I could do, online courses or something. Like I had so many different ideas of what I could do. Maybe getting into tech or e-commerce. My siblings are both in those worlds. So that sounded interesting to me. But while working at this ketamine clinic, I just felt this like new sense of passion for that one-on-one therapeutic work of like working with people in their traumas and in their deeper, more private lives, and really helping people gain a better perspective and unravel some of the childhood things that happened to them. And again, I'm not a therapist, so I don't do therapy. I'm more of like a trip sitter is what I would call it. But just being in the environment that is therapeutic and where people are going deep and talking about spirituality and trauma and emotional issues and their childhood and all of that stuff, I was feeling so lit up. So I was just like looking at the obvious facts of my life that like if I look at my bookshelf, like it's all stuff about different therapy modalities, and this is something I'm obviously really interested in. And there's also the fact that if I ever wanted to get into psychedelic therapy in a more real legal way, which I think I'm interested in, but we'll see, It's going to be really hard to do that. It seems like right now it's going to be hard to do that without having a license. So it feels like I've been sort of staying under the radar, and I've been doing this work in really cool ways, very on the side, but really wanting to commit to this path. That's what kind of helped me make this decision. So that's where I'm at. It feels crazy that it's actually happening. There's been so many times where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I think there's a lot to it. It's like not just the money, that's the biggest thing, but there's also just, having to commute and having to have, like, I've been really enjoying for the first time in my adult life, really having like the whole year where I still was working and I was still busy, but I wasn't on like a 9 to 5 schedule kind of thing. I was on more of like a make my own schedule. Wow, it's been really nice, and it's been really aligned, like having slow mornings and not having to rush out the door. It's just been like revolutionary for my health and for my mental health, for my physical health. So I'm going to be sad to miss that now that I'm in school, but I think the school schedule is still going to be a little more flexible than when I was a teacher. And I'm a student. Like, I'm going to be a student. I still don't know what that's going to feel like, but I'm kind of excited. Like, I almost hate to admit how much I love school and just the structure of it, because I just have like a core belief that intrinsic motivation is the most important thing. So it's funny to me that deeper underneath all of that, I'm still well trained in the game of school, and in some ways it's really helpful to be productive when you're being held accountable. So, and I understand that, and that's why I do coaching. Like, people want me as their kind of teacher, their accountability person. So I just have to admit to myself that I can't do this all on my own always. I don't need to be the hyper independent person that I always strive to be. So yeah, that's my big life update. I feel like the major themes are I moved a bunch. I had a bunch of housing insecurity. I eventually found a really magical place to live where I'm really happy and I feel really healthy. I left my job with no plan, with no safety net. It was very scary and it got really hard and rocky. And now I'm starting to feel, I'm not like quite there yet, but I'm starting to feel the stability that I've been longing for. It's not quite here yet, but I'm definitely starting to feel it. It feels like with this journey, there was just really no way for me to know what my next steps were going to be. I guess I was waiting for that. And that's like a big lesson from this, I feel like, is I hear this time and time again, but you kind of just have to jump off the cliff. And a lot of it in retrospect is like, it seems so obvious, and I don't know why it wasn't obvious to me at the time, but like I just kept talking myself into staying, even though like I was really unhappy and I was really burnt out and I was really exhausted and my body was having a lot of pain and I was having a lot of health issues. It was just like the Gabor Mate book, When the Body Says No, really spoke to me in this. Like, I felt like in my mind and in my emotions, like everything on paper seemed really great and there was no reason for me to leave. Even both my job and my housing situation felt like very safe, very comfortable. But I was in them both for 13 years and 10 years. So it's just like, there just comes a time, I guess, where a change needs to happen. And it probably could have happened sooner if I would have like listened. But I think it all happened in the perfect timing. I think everything's lining up in a way that makes me believe that like it was actually worth waiting. And even though those last couple years were sort of hard and I was really having a lot of inner battles, I feel like ultimately I'm starting to see the light. Like, I'm starting to see where all this was headed and how it led me to where I am right now. So long story short, I'm doing really, really well, and I'm definitely coming through like a really rough, one of the lowest points in my life, probably. I think if I were to graph it, like the lowest point would have probably been like winter 2020, 2021. And a few things kind of held me through. I did my yoga teacher training during that time, which was so helpful and amazing. And then, yeah, just like having a little bit of community. There was so much isolation, but when things did start to slowly open up, like having community back has been feeling so amazing. And this summer has been like, oh my gosh, almost overwhelming, but in a good way. Like, I've been so blissed out with so many amazing gatherings and festivals and camping trips and nature. The weather's been so good. Yeah. So I just feel pretty on cloud nine right now, but I always know, and I'm realistic, that it's not going to stay that way. And things. I definitely feel the calm before the storm right now. I literally am like, today I am preparing for tomorrow, which is kind of my first day of school. So this is like a really big moment of transition for me, even though the last 2 years have been a transition for me. But today in particular, and this week is like where I'm really going to be moving into this new path, this new phase, this next couple years. And the program is 2 years. I don't really quite understand the whole process, but after the 2 years, there's going to be another several years of like accumulating hours to be fully licensed. So it's a lot of hoop jumping, and I don't know if I recommend it. I'm almost honestly a little bit scared. Like it's a lot to keep track of and to wrap my mind around. So I can't believe it's actually happening. But I feel really confident that I'm supposed to be doing this, and that there are people out there. There seems to be a lot of people that need therapy right now, and that there's not a lot of therapists, especially in our state and in Seattle. Like whenever I reach out to try to find a therapist, they're all booked out. So I think I'm needed in this world, in this field, and I still feel very much like a beginner, even though I've had many years of experience, like I guess working with people and teaching and being an emotional supportive person and friend. But what I'm really excited about, and I think it's most valuable about going to a program versus like just continuing my coaching business, is that I'm going to be getting like so many hours, like hundreds of hours of experience. And it's going to be coordinated through my program. So it's not going to be like me needing to advertise or like try to get clients through social media or something. Because that works, and I've done okay. It's been very part-time, and I've really loved it. So I'm not trying to like talk down about it, but I feel like it's just hard to get those bulk hours, you know? And so working at the ketamine clinic has been giving me a ton of hours, like hundreds of hours, and then having this program. So now I'm going to actually be feeling like I know what I'm doing. I feel like imposter syndrome is real, and I kind of want to make a whole video on that. Which brings me to, I actually wanted to end this video by just mentioning why I'm coming back onto here at all. To be completely honest, I don't know if I have a reason besides just like, I just keep getting, I guess, the download or the ping to be more vocal on YouTube. And I think there's a lot to it. I think I have a lot to share. I think I'm a very chatty person, and I'm always thinking about ideas and philosophy and spirituality. And I'm always deep diving into some book. Like I'm reading this insane, amazing book about past lives right now. So just, I want to be able to like share some of the stuff that I'm learning in my own words, with my own voice. But more than that, like I definitely love inspiring people and impacting people's lives if that's possible, but I see that as the cherry on top. I think the real reason that I feel, when I really look deep down, why I feel called to share on YouTube and not any other platform, or just in general why I feel called to share, I think it's like a deeply symbolic and healing thing for me, and I think many other people will agree with me, that sharing what's really on my heart and my mind, even when it's really hard. Like I shared some really vulnerable things in my Women Who Run with the Wolves videos. So if you've watched those, you know what I'm talking about. And just sharing vulnerably is deeply healing for me. Like I know I've heard from other people that it's healing for them too, to hear it. But more than that, being able to share and just accept myself and accept these things that have happened to me, or these feelings that I have, or the shadowy aspects of me, has been so deeply healing, because I just feel so seen. And I just feel like I want more of that in my life. And I just want to also have something to look back at. Like something that's really cool is I'll make a YouTube video, and then I'll like be editing it, and I'll kind of cringe, you know? I'm like, oh God, like I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I have so many critiques. I have a very, very strong inner critic when it comes to watching myself on video. It's so challenging. If you haven't done it, like it's really hard. I don't know how people do it and look so natural. But anyway, I always feel like I don't really sound like myself, and then I don't look or sound authentic, and I'm very hard on myself. But a couple years will go by, like 2 or 3 years will go by, and I'll watch an old video, and I'll just I'll be so inspired by myself. Like, it's like once I've not looked at it for a while, then I look back and I just think even if I look nervous or sound inauthentic, like I know that I'm coming from a good place and I can see my heart. And so I guess one of my main reasons to make videos is what I'm saying is that I love the idea of having kind of a record, almost like a diary of sorts of what I was thinking about on this day and this time, like September 2022, and what was I going through, and like what kind of life transformations were happening for me. So telling my story and sharing what's on my heart and what's on my mind is really, for me, it's a selfish endeavor. But I'm stoked if you are interested in, if you've listened this far to my random life update. Part of the other motivation for making this video is I've had, once I see people after not seeing them for 2 years over the pandemic, like I know we've all gone through crazy transformations, so this just keeps happening, but I'll see a friend that I haven't seen in 2 years and I'll be like, oh my God, what have you been through? Because I've been through crazy stuff. And so it's fun to like give the update, but I feel like I'm like a broken record and I'm giving the update a lot. So it's nice to just like give it all at once, and then maybe whoever finds this video will see where I'm at on the path, and maybe they'll see where they are on the path. And yeah, I don't know what else I'm going to make, but I just want to get on here and start sharing what's on my mind and what's on my heart and anything that I'm finding helpful or inspiring. So if you'd like to, please subscribe to my channel. That's another just side goal of mine, is to get 1,000 subscribers, because that's like the holy grail of YouTube goals. I mean, there's more YouTube goals, I'm sure, but getting 1,000 subscribers just feels like a good goal. And I think having a goal and keeping myself accountable and keeping myself coming back, like I feel like whenever I get a subscriber, it inspires me and motivates me to make more videos. So if you want me to make more videos, if you like what I'm talking about, if you like hearing me talk about myself, or again, like later the videos will be more about ideas and different things like that, please subscribe and like this video and whatever. What's the other thing you can do? Turn on notifications. I don't know if that helps. I don't know anything about the algorithm, so I don't know what I'm doing, but maybe I'll learn. I feel like you got to start somewhere, and beginner's mind. So thank you so much for listening to this super scattered video about my life. I hope you liked it.